Are you ready?
I'm so ready. I'm very excited.
Oh, the amount of Nessa I do, I'm like, oh God. Right then, okay. All right, what's occurring? Welcome to this week's episode of the Actors Waiting Room with your host, Grace Price, and special guest, Vanessa Shanessa Jenkins. We're going to be talking about the creative acting industry to give you all some advice and what have you. So do me a favour and stay tuned, all right? Tidy.
Stunning. It's so good.
Oh,
So good.
honestly, my partner, he is. I think if I in the house go, oh, one more time. Honestly, I think he's like, I am going to collapse. Like that's all he hears me like every day is me being like, oh, and he's like, mm.
So good though. It's so good. And also like I don't know when you actually started doing. When did you actually start doing the impersonations? Like as soon as you were on TikTok?
October.
October.
No, October. So it's like I've been on TikTok for a long time, but October was when I like officially started. And but since then it's literally been a whirlwind. And every day, or at least every other day, I'm doing something Nessa related. So
Mm.
it's just, I think there were people on TikTok saying like my partner's called Rich, and they were like, oh, does he love your impressions? And I'm like, well,
You should just do a little clip of you just doing them around the house as he gets slowly more annoyed.
my God, honestly, yeah, bless him because he works from home as well. So
Oh
when I
God.
was doing them, he's and yeah, oh, love him anyway. And it's not like we've got a massive house where we can be like miles away from each other. It's like, no, he's above me. Like, I'm going,
Oh.
oh, all the time. So annoying, bless him.
Oh, has he ever been on a call and someone else has heard you?
Has he ever been? Oh, I don't think so. No,
Oh,
luckily, we can shut the office door upstairs. So their room has turned into an office for us, so we can shut that door, and it sort of dampens the sound a bit. So I
okay.
think he can hear it, but I don't think they can, thankfully.
Oh, that would be hilarious if they could. That would be so funny. Oh. And so I thought we'd talk probably about because you're an actor, aren't you?
I am, yeah.
Yes. You're an actor. And I also saw producer,
Yes, I
which is
am.
really cool, actually. I don't think I've met an actor slash producer yet. No.
Well, here I am.
Yeah, I've always met people that were like, I did an acting course and then I wanted to do just producing, but you actually do like both at the same time, which I think is really insightful because you can have both sides. And I'm wondering what you take from each side of it to give to the other for as like a top tip, I suppose. Like, does it help you, the fact that you're an actor and you take bits from the producing side that may help the acting side and vice versa?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that being a producer and an actor, like you said, you get that lovely insight into both things. So I think
Mm,
when I enter a project as an actor, I'm acutely aware of everything that's happening or has happened up until that process to get the show to where it needs to be. So I
mm,
think that also, weirdly, being a producer as well, and I think I find this with friends who also do different aspects of theatre and not just acting, is that I feel like it makes you a more well-rounded performer and collaborator to be in the room
mm,
because I'm like highly aware of what the production manager and the production team are doing. I know what the creative team are doing. I know what the MD is up to. Like, and I feel like having that insight can be really, really interesting
mm.
because it does mean that naturally within the room sometimes I'm there as an actor, but I'll be the one going, does anybody need anything? Is everyone all right?
Mm.
And I can't like beat it out with me because my bread and butter is producing, and that's how I make the majority of my income. So it's I'm almost always producing led first and actor led second. But yeah, I've been over the last few years sort of doing both things, and I'm really lucky to have an employer that is really supportive of me going and
Good.
those things as well. So I'm really lucky.
Yeah, definitely. And like, is there maybe one piece of advice that you could give to an actor if they're in a rehearsal room that would benefit the producer? Not that the producer's always in the rehearsal room, but is there anything like just one tip?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think just being aware that they're there a lot of the
Mm.
time. So I
Yeah.
know as a producer, and very like in my form of producing, very little am I in the rehearsal room
Yeah.
actually. So I'll come in mostly towards the end of the week to see how things are progressing,
Yeah.
will also be there, obviously, when the show goes up and being on the ground to support everyone. But I find a lot of the time, because I'm tucked away in the back somewhere, furiously writing up budgets and contracts and making sure everyone's paid and that all of our partners are on board, fundraisers are on board, overseeing the marketing strategy, working with the production manager to make sure all of that's moving forward. I'm not in that space. But also, I suppose, just knowing that the producer is there and they are that person side of the room that you can go to and you can get support from. They're often the person who is well-being led on the project. They're the person you can go to if you've got an issue. So just remember that they are there to talk to you if you've got even the tiniest question or the biggest problem. Just go and find them and speak to them, and just remember they exist, I think.
I think that is so key, because not that it's even been told to me that you should be scared of the producer, but I feel like there is this weird thing that actors are like, the producers are coming in. Like, it's a really big, like, you know, when you're ever in a rehearsal room and you're like, oh, today's the day that the producer's coming in. And you're like, everyone kind of shits themselves for like 2 seconds. And it's like, why? Because they are in charge of pretty much your well-being and looking after you, and like, well, not fully, but they are, you know, that's kind of one of their job roles. And it's like, it's weird that we have this weird relationship with them. Do you know what I mean? And I think it should be more, you know, like give and take a little bit. Like, you should probably be a bit more. So that's a good idea. Maybe approach them more, maybe.
Absolutely. And I think we have a view of a producer, like, to be absolutely transparent. I've been producing for 8 years now, and there is not a year that goes by where I do not Google, what does a producer do? Because honestly, like, I go in, I do talks and I do sessions with artists around producing. And it's really hard to sum up in just a few words what a producer does, because it's so vast and so wide ranging. And I think that often we have this old school view of a producer, like the West End producer, the very old school way, where it was the producer was the person who the book stopped with them, and they would be the reason you were cast. They would be the reason you were in the first place. They'd be the one that would make all the money. I think that times have massively shifted. Producing is far more now a collaborative role that works across the entire company to make sure everybody's okay as well, first and foremost. And so I think that a lot of actors still have this mentality of the producer being in a back room somewhere. Like, the first producer I ever met, all I knew was that she ate salads at lunch and did like loads of Excel spreadsheets. I didn't know what any of it meant. And became a producer and went, oh, okay, this is what I do. I definitely think that the shift has happened to more collaborative producing now, definitely.
And so you obviously did you train in acting first and then you went into producing? Is that how it sort of came about?
Yeah, that's right. So I went to the University of Hull. So I never actually auditioned for drama school, because I am from a little town called Neath in South Wales, next to Swansea, and from a very working class family, very much in the valleys. And drama school was just not an option for me. And it was because it was 50 quid to audition. You had to get trained, or your mum and dad had to drive you, because I didn't drive at the time. And it was just like, that's just not going to be a possibility for me. But from being a young age, I wanted to be an actor and I didn't know how to get there without it. And I had family connections to Hull, and my mum's originally from the city and I had family here. And I really wanted an opportunity to like reinvent myself a bit and like push myself out my comfort zone and just go for it. And so I went to the University of Hull, which has an incredible drama department, historically an amazing drama department. And it wasn't just focused around acting. You also did lighting, sound, stage management, projection.
Oh, okay.
You sort of got to have a taster of a bit of everything.
Oh, that's useful.
Producing wasn't on there. And still isn't to this day, which baffles me. I keep trying to push him and go, I can teach you if you want. I can come in and tell him. But I think, like a lot of producers actually, and particularly producer actors, I ended up producing out of necessity, because I now live in Hull, which has a population of about 250,000 people. There's not many people in Hull, and there's a tiny amount of producers. There's about 5 of us. Like, there's none of us. And honestly, you should see it. It's a joke. Like, it's me going, I can't do this job. Jack, can you do this job? And no, I can't. Luke, can you do this job? And we just pass it between us. And if none of us can do it, we can't help you. So like a lot of actors, I ended up producing out of necessity and learning, okay, well, how do I make work happen? Because being a fat woman, as well, the sort of roles that I wanted to play weren't really existing for me. I went, right, fine, right, I'm just going to make them myself.
Yeah.
And so me and my theatre company, the Roaring Girls, and we're a sort of a group of devising artists, and we decided we'd come together, create all this work, and make these roles on stage for ourselves, and sort of learned how to produce at necessity. And from there, I was like, I love this. I love the side of going, how does this work? How do we get this on?
Mm.
Like, where does the money come from? How do I organize this? I
Yeah.
really fell in love with it. And so from there, I launched my producing career about 8 years ago, which is mad now.
Oh, that's amazing. I love the fact that you just took power and was like, yeah, if no one's going to cast me, then I'm going to like, I'm going to sort it out type thing. And I think a lot of actors sit in this horrible empty space called, like, I call it no man's land, where you're just sort of like, well, like someone's not employing me, but I don't really know what to do because I've been trained as an actor. Like, I think that's very beneficial that your course showed you lots of different sides because mine was very intense. It was 9 till 5, practical every day. Stanislavski, Uta Hagen, all of that stuff being like, we are actors. Like, you know what I mean? It was very like strict on that case, which, you know, is as needed, I suppose, in some areas. But you then come out into the industry and it's like, oh, I've got to now just not really wait for auditions because you can still apply and stuff, but you are pretty much at the mercy of the industry of being like, oh, well, you know, we know you're there, but we'll call you in when we can type thing. And you're just a bit like, oh, what do we do? And that's definitely why I created a podcast because I was like, I'm itching to do something, but I don't know what else to do. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, no, that's great. I really, really love that. And the fact that you've just created roles as well for like other people like yourself, like that's awesome. What type of other things do you do? Like, is it mainly female-led stuff or is it, you know, a variety?
A bit of all sorts, to be honest. So I think over the years, I've done children's theatre with an amazing company called The Herd, who are based in Hull, and absolutely gorgeous. Their work is so beautiful and powerful
Mm,
and important. So I've done a lot of sort of devising work with them for children and young people.
nice.
In non-traditional spaces. So last year we did a show called Essential Playworks, where we essentially were play workers dressed up as construction workers. And I produced this show as well, so that was fun. And we had loads of construction items donated to us from loads of companies, and we set
Oh.
up this massive play installation in the
Mm.
middle of the festival, and we're playing with children and young people as construction workers, and had loads of fun doing that. And then, like I say, going back to Beachbody Ready, which was a sort of fierce, feminist, fun theatre company, which was all about creating those roles for ourselves. We did a show called Beachbody Ready, which was based on our own experiences in our bodies. And we took that to the Fringe and then went on a tour with that, which the pandemic stopped, which was like so
Oh, that's
frustrating.
annoying, yeah.
Oh my gosh, we were literally heading up for the third date of our tour to the Vault Festival, and at the time, and as we entered London, Boris went, "Just close everything." Oh my god,
God, that's so annoying. It's so
so
annoying.
so frustrating. And we went to the Airbnb we were staying at, and we all just got drunk and played card games. But there was this big poster on the wall of Freddie Mercury in the classic mic stand pose with "The show must go on" in big letters. And I was like, I just
Yeah.
what oh my God. So sort of doing that kind of devised work, it was sort of between part confessional, part stand up. There was
Mm.
always confetti. We fed everyone biscuits. It was a really
I love
time.
that.
Honestly, it was such a gorgeous time. And then to more sort of scratch performances and early career work, going in and sort of being part of R&Ds and that kind of thing, voiceover work, a bit of radio. So I've sort of done a
Mm.
vast array of different things
Yeah.
across my career.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think because I'm an actor and producer, a lot of the acting work I fit in are sort of shorter term contracts between my producing. So
Yeah.
with that means I get to take part in a massive array of joyful, ridiculous, wonderful
Yeah.
jobs, which is just so fun.
And you're allowed to be fully freelance, which also is great as well. Great.
Oh,
As an actor to be
absolutely.
fully freelance, that's a big achievement. Like, yeah, that's
It
really
is.
great. Really,
Yeah,
really great. So I've got some more, we'll probably talk a little bit more about this, about like I've seen that you self-represent yourself. Um,
I do.
how do you operate that without an agent? Like, I think half the time more people should be self-represented because sometimes people just go for an agent just because they just like, I need the agent or whatever. But sometimes I think with sometimes you can't always pick that well with agents, and there are a lot out there, and sometimes you just go with whatever you just snap up, and sometimes it's just not always the right fit, to be honest. And I just wonder how you navigate getting your own work or things like that with being like, self-represented.
Yeah. So honestly, I think so many of my friends are moving away from having an agent now. So I'm
Okay.
someone who's literally never had an agent. Like the whole time I've been performing, I've never had an agent.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's because like actors are their own biggest advocates. And I think a lot of my friends were finding that they were getting these jobs off their own back
Hmm.
and were then having to give permission to their agent. And it was like so weird because they got the job themselves,
Hmm.
just literally being their own advocate. And I think something that's becoming more and more common now as well are actors co-ops, which have been popping up all over the country. There's a few really established ones in London that I highly recommend you look into if you are leaning more towards an agency. An actors co-op, a group of actors coming together to form an agency and represent themselves and each other is such a beautiful collaborative agency to be part of. And it means that you're cutting through all of the crap that you normally get with an agency. And I think a lot of the time, like when you're acting, you're going out there, you're networking, you're reading casting breakdowns, you're speaking to people. That's everything your agent does. Like aside from contract negotiations and the administrative side,
I
though,
hate that word.
not
Horrible word.
happening. Oh, my brain just collapsed. But apart from that, like which is very important, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that agents don't do anything because
Mm-hmm.
no, there are agent friends of mine that work really, really hard to represent the actors they have on their books. But ultimately, a good chunk of it is what you do naturally as a performer. So to pay somebody commission to do that on your behalf,
Yeah.
me feels a bit counterintuitive. And it also means that I have a greater agency, like, pardon the pun, over the work that I'm doing and the stuff that I'm putting myself forward for.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I just have more ownership over my career than, and a lot of my friends are moving that way as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true. It's true. And it's nice to know that you kind of got like a bigger, like, it sounds like you've got like a good community up in Hull as well. Like, I think a lot of people just, and I did an episode on this like quite a while back, being like, do you have to live in London to be a successful creative? And you absolutely don't. Like,
No.
you really do not. And it's nice to remind people, I think, that you've got great communities in the north. Like the north is doing great for theatre, like really, really well. But it's nice to know about Hull because I never hear about Hull, actually. Never really. You hear about Leeds, I suppose, and stuff like that, obviously with the Playhouse. But yeah, I mean it's nice to remind people that there's definitely a community up there.
That there is. I think there's such a divide between London theatre and regional theatre, and the fact that
Mhm.
it's called regional theatre also winds me up a little bit because
Yeah,
regional
it's
theatres make up the majority of the country.
yeah.
So there is this massive divide and this idea that you have to move to London in order to be successful. But I suppose it depends on what does success look like to you as an actor, because if success to you looks like performing in the West End with Judi Dench, then yes, London's probably the vibe. But if success looks like making a career out of being an actor, you can do that anywhere.
Yeah, but I do think that's kind of narrow-minded because you can't wait your whole life just to be on the National Theatre stage with David Tennant.
Yeah,
Like you can't, you just can't. It's not, unfortunately, it's not a realistic enough goal. And you, that may happen to you. And I hope that it does, to be honest, because it would be, a great achievement. But there's so many other creative projects going on. And like, what a shame to think that you can't go and do like regional theatre or anything like that. And regional theatre is great. Like it's so great, and sometimes it's way more creative than the West End currently at the moment because they recycle, they overuse things, and there's lots of like the same plays going on over and over again. And I get it because it sells tickets. Like Les Mis has been there for God knows how long, but
yeah.
it's nice to experience a bit more different creative projects going on. Definitely, yeah,
Yeah, and I think in regional theatre, they can take more of a risk as well, you know?
yeah,
And I think a lot of, again, if we look at our David Tennants and our Dame Judi Denches and all of those guys, a lot of their start came from regional theatre. It
yeah, it
came from
did.
performing on those stages and eventually working their way up in that way. And I see so many actors who put themselves in a really miserable position of living in London, not having any money, it not being a viable full-time career for them at that time, when actually moving to the north, moving to the Midlands, moving to Wales, you suddenly have those opened up for you. And that's not me like poo-pooing London either, because I was up there working, loving it, having a wonderful time. And I think there's absolutely it's different strokes for different folks. Like if that's what you do, that's wonderful. But I think there is, like you said, a narrow-mindedness of going, there is a world that exists outside of London. You should come and experience it because it's bloody magic. And communities, like I say, in Hull, where I am now, I've lived here 12 years. We are a city of 250,000 people, and the creative community here are so supportive. Like there's a massive freelance community, and we're always like meeting at and offering advice and mentorship with one another, and going and helping each other film self-tapes, and coming together and talking about the state of the industry and what we can do and what our role is within it. And I think that there's lots of this going on across the country, but as always, the focus remains predominantly on London theatre, and I think that can be really frustrating for regional artists.
So let's go across to Nessa. Let's have a little chat about Nessa. So obviously you do impersonations with Nessa Jenkins, formerly known from Gavin and Stacey. And Gavin and Stacey's obviously kicked off massively recently because they've just had their final Christmas episode, obviously. They just kicked off. Did you watch it?
Oh my gosh, I had to watch it. Oh, of course. Like if I hadn't watched it, everybody would have been like, what are you doing? Literally planned my entire day around it.
Oh, really?
Honestly, because I've always loved Gavin and Stacey. And I think as well, being that sort of from the valleys, being from South Wales, it's absolutely a community I recognise. And the writing of it, the characters, like all of it is a heightened reality of something I know so well.
That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if it really is like that in a way, because obviously it was written by people that two people that weren't Welsh. Like,
well, no, Ruth Jones is Welsh.
Oh, I thought she wasn't.
Yeah, Ruth Jones is Welsh.
That makes way more sense now, because whenever I hear her speak, I was like, your accent is so different to like what she does obviously on the show. But okay.
Ruth Jones is Welsh. So it was very much based around, I think, the communities you see on Gavin and Stacey, particularly the Welsh communities and along Trinity Street where Gwen's house is and everything. It's a community I recognise. And yes, it's a heightened version of it. Of course it is. But those characters, everyone knows an Uncle Bryn. Everyone knows a dog.
Really?
Everyone knows those people. And so I think that's why it became so big in South Wales in particular, was because it's so rare to see those communities on our screen and on BBC One, no less. You know? Like not on S4C, not on BBC Three, BBC Four, like on BBC One, seeing these Welsh communities were there. So I've always been a massive fan of Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah, no, I rewatched it actually in preparation for the Christmas episode, because I was like, because there's actually not that many episodes. Like nowadays we have like Stranger Things and all the stuff like that where it's like 50 million episodes, which is great. But like it was really kind of like a mini series for a while. Like it was really small, and I loved it. It's such a good comfort show for me. Massively. So when did your first video about impersonating Nessa go viral then? When was that?
The 21st of October 2024. So literally from the recording of this podcast like 3 months ago. Which is absolutely crazy. And it all started because I was waiting for my partner to come out of a meeting, like you do. I was in a pub, because that's where I like to wait. And I was
obviously,
it was great. And I was doing that thing of like mindlessly scrolling through TikTok, like so many of us do. And this woman came up, and I still to this day cannot remember her name, which is really annoying. But she did an impression of if Nessa was in Nanny McPhee. And she did this impression in this little sketch. And I was sat there quietly and I thought, I feel like my impression of Nessa is better than hers.
Yeah.
I'll do a video. And so I got in my car and I set up my phone and I was, what can I do? And I thought, right, I need to make something that has a wider audience than just Gavin and Stacey, because that's pretty niche. So I thought, Harry Potter's got a massive following. I'll do Nessa in Harry Potter. And just sat in the car and did that little sketch, thought no more of it. And that one, I think it's been over 1 million views now, but I think that was like the first one that went viral. And then I thought, oh, I'm onto something here. And so I thought, well, like, and I told my mum, I was like, Mum, I've gone viral. My mum went, well, make hay while the sun shines, love. So I was like, this is my mum's advice. So that's the advice I would give to all actors and creatives anywhere. Make hay while the sun shines. So I thought, yeah, do you know what? I'm just going to do more videos. And I've been doing them now for the past 3 months. And it has been a whirlwind of opportunities and fun and silliness. And it's really
Oh,
been able to help me exercise my acting muscle between jobs as well. Because I
yeah.
think that's the other thing as an actor, like you do a job and then you go back to working in a cafe, in a bar, for the NHS, whatever you're doing to sustain yourself. And
Mm,
you're not having those moments to like truly exercise those
yeah.
muscles. And so for me, TikTok became that, being able to do these sketches, being able to be creative and come up with silly ideas,
Hmm.
suddenly gave me that opportunity to do that between jobs.
Yeah. And how quick did it go viral, like from when you posted it?
About 2 days.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then like you must have just opened it and seen all these notifications and was just like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think I joined TikTok in lockdown in 2020. Like so many people, this app came up and I was like, oh, let me see. Became immediately addicted, was like scrolling in the dead of night. And in 2022, I did a sketch series called Questions for Thin People. And it was like me as a fat woman with all the things I did not understand about what it meant to be thin.
Right.
I did this, I did a few like different sketches around that. And one of them, I think, is now on 17.3 million views, which is mad. And that was in 2022. So I'd already had this sort of little viral peak
Okay.
and
Yeah.
started making some sketches around questions I had for thin people. The really annoying thing about that video is 17.3 million views, never got paid a penny because I was talking about fannies. Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there was a restriction on that.
There's apparently a restriction on fannies because I didn't get a penny for that. And I would have got a nice little chunk of money from that video.
Oh my God.
Did.
What the hell?
I know.
That's so weird. And half the stuff that's on TikTok as well. Like
Right.
that's so weird.
Oh,
You
it's
can make
weird.
money from people making slime and like you can't talk about female anatomy.
Exactly.
What the
Yeah.
hell?
Yeah. Female anatomy was a much better way of putting it than me being like, I couldn't talk about fannies on the internet. It's my life's purpose.
That's crazy. Oh my
I know.
God, no, TikTok, that's a bad thing. I can't believe that. Oh, that's
Yeah, it was wild. So I'd already had that sort of taste of going viral, I think, around that time and getting loads of notifications and followers coming up. And then sort of was just creating TikTok content for my own laughs, really, just for a bit of fun for myself. And then, like I say, in October, did this video, went viral. And then from there, just started making more and more sketches as doing my Nessa impression,
yeah.
which still to this day is still getting a lot of engagement, which is really, really brilliant. And
Yeah.
to get paid for those videos as well.
Yeah,
So
which is
money
good.
from TikTok, I'm diversifying my income stream.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? As I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, of course. No, definitely. I saw the one where you go shopping in the shopping center. That's great. I thought that was when I saw that, I was like, that's genius. I was like, that's absolute genius.
So
Yeah.
they reached out to, so that was St. David Shopping Centre in Cardiff, and they reached out to me. It was my first paid partnership. So
Oh,
they
wow.
said, we'll pay you what you ask for, basically. I mean, within reason. Now,
Yeah.
like, what's
Million.
the day rate? Yeah, literally like £100,000. They were like, we'll pay you a day rate, like you set the day rate, and then we'll give you 100 quid to like shop in the centre and
Yeah.
do a video with Nessa. And so that was my first paid partnership, but it was also the first time I got recognized in public. And this
Amazing.
is so embarrassing, right? So I was so embarrassed filming this content, right? Because I'd been doing it all at home, like in my
Yeah.
living room, and
Mm.
suddenly to be filming as
It's
doing my
it's embarrassing. Like I've tried to do like day in the lives and stuff, and I'm like, people are looking at me, and I was like, I can't do it. Like those girls that do like the stuff on the tube.
yeah.
How do you do that? Like, how do you do that?
My God, I was so embarrassed and I was walking around. And do you know when you just like all of a sudden it suddenly struck me that I was like stood outside Build-A-Bear and I was and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, what is my life? Like, why am I doing this to myself? So anyway, my mum came with me naturally because I needed some moral support.
Of
So my
course,
mum came with me, but she wandered off to a market and because my mum is drawn to a bargain. So she went over to the market and she was having a look.
of course.
So I'm walking around and I'm feeling really nervous. I'm like real on edge. And then all of a sudden I was like, I can't find where my mum's gone, right? And I'm a 32-year-old woman. Couldn't find where my mum's gone. I was like, where is she? And this woman came up to me and she went, oh gosh, you're the girl from TikTok that does the Nessa stuff. And I don't know why I did this, but I looked her dead in the eye and I just went, can't find my mum. Oh God. I was like, I can't find my mum. Do you know why I just said that? It's so nice to meet you. Hello.
That's amazing. I bet she was just like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, bye. I was like, what an absolute banana. But then, we had a chat about it and stuff, and it was really lovely. But it felt really weird to have somebody go like, you're that person from the internet.
Yeah.
And I had that yesterday as well, actually. Me and my other half went out in Hull for some food and stuff. And I got a message on TikTok going, oh, I've just seen you or your doppelganger in this pub. And I said, oh, that was me. Yeah, that was me. And she was like, oh, I wanted to say hello to you, but I didn't, want to disturb.
Mm.
I was like, oh, you could have come over, love. I wouldn't have
Yeah,
minded.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I also then was acutely aware that I was probably looking quite annoyed because I was really hungry and I was like waiting for food. And it was a very stressful time. And then, but it suddenly opened my eyes of going, oh God, like,
People
what if
can
people
see
see me
you.
and go, oh my gosh, she's really moody. And I'm not a moody
Yeah,
person.
yeah. It opens up a whole, I don't know, a whole thing of like who's watching you. Because, you
Yeah.
don't know who recognizes you, do you? And so like, yeah, has that like affected you going out a bit or not really? You just be like, do you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't really think about it very much, to be honest, because in the grand scheme of things, I've got 230,000 followers now on TikTok. So nearly not far off quarter of a million, which is around the population of the city I live in, which is mad.
Yeah,
Like thinking about it like that is absolutely wild.
yeah.
But also I'm not a celebrity. I'm not someone who's got millions of followers. Do you know what I mean? So I don't really think about it at all. But when it happens, it is really weird and I feel
A
very
real
strange
moment.
with it. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
really odd.
Yeah. I can't imagine that. Also, I reckon people, like when you get approached and stuff, and I always think this as well, when you've watched somebody on your screen for such a long time, you think you know them. And I reckon that people must come up to you quite over familiar, like over familiar, that's not a word. Like, what's the word? Like just come up to you as if they know you, basically.
Yeah.
And you must be like, oh, and you have no idea who they are, but they obviously have been watching you for a really long time. So they have such like, yeah, they're familiar with your face. So they must think that they know you.
Yeah, and that's the thing again. I'm so not used to it, and it's not an expected thing at all. So often, I think they're going to ask me when the next bus is, or like the direction to Tesco. So I just like, hello,
Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, it's really I mean it's lovely because I love chatting to people anyway and like meeting people and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it at the moment. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really complex, strange thing because as I said before, and this sounds really like, ugh, but I am just someone who's doing TikToks in their living room. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm on big stages. I'm not on the telly. I'm on an app on your phone. Like it's a very different vibe.
Mm,
But I think nowadays as well, there's so many actors that are utilizing TikTok
yeah,
as a platform to do sketches, to put themselves out there.
yeah,
And we're really seeing that effect. And
yeah,
so I would absolutely say to any actors listening, just do it. Like
yeah,
pick up your phone, like
mm,
just start posting things. Like,
yeah.
oh,
And on that, because I completely understand what you mean about like when you do like day in the lives or when you go out, how do you get past that sort of imposter syndrome? Because as soon as I like post something, I'm always like, God, I'm like, that's like if it's a bit not even that it's a bit out there, but it's just embarrassing. Like you're just like, oh, I'm putting something out there that's quite you're very vulnerable, I think, when you put something out like that to like everybody. So like how do you get over that? Or do you just be like, fuck it?
Exactly that. I think you just say, fuck it, in for a penny, in for a pound. I think
Yeah.
I was really embarrassed when I first started doing it. And I remember, because I do TikTok lives as well,
Okay.
speak to audiences and get ideas for the next sketches and all that kind of
Oh,
thing,
cool.
that engagement, which is really fun.
Mm.
But I remember the first time I opened up the live, I spent 30 seconds and I shut it down and I was so embarrassed. I was literally beetroot red. I was sweat, the backs of my knees were sweating. And I was like, what am I, like, who do I think I am? What am I doing? Why am I doing a live? Like,
Mm.
what have I got to say about the world and to these people? And I
Mm.
think gradually, the more you do it, the more you realize that actually people aren't thinking about you as much as you think they might be. And
Mm.
that's true of audition rooms and true of all of those spaces that we enter as actors. It's
Mm.
sort of like dating when you're a teenager, where you spend nights in your bed going, oh, is he thinking about me? Oh, is he thinking
Mm.
about me? No, he's playing Fortnite. And it's the same with people, TikTok audiences. It's the same with directors and those people in those spaces. Like we become so acutely aware of ourselves because it is ourselves that we're selling and we're putting out there, that
Mm.
we do naturally worry about what everyone's thinking about us. And the
Yeah.
truth is, a lot of the time, they're not thinking at all.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we just need that little reminder that
Mm.
we are our own worst critic and just put the stuff out there.
Yeah, because it is a way. I mean, TikTok's amazing now because it really does actually allow you as a creative, especially like when you don't get the opportunities that others are given as well. Like it's allowing you to create your own opportunities in that area and being like, I'm allowed to get my, put whatever I want out there. Like particularly if you're an actor or creative, like you can literally put what you create out there for free. You don't
Yeah.
have to pay to be part of a showcase, or you don't have to go and pay to be part of an agent's panel where you perform to people and hope that they maybe sign you and stuff like that. Like it kind of has eradicated all of that. And yeah, I think it's great as a tool for that. Other things it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's lots of other stuff on there. But like I think in terms of a creative, I think it's a really good idea to do it. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, I
So-
think you just need to get yourself out there a lot of the time and just like I've said a few times in this podcast, and I realize I'm banging the same bloody drum, but actors are our own biggest advocates, and you
Yeah.
have to advocate for yourself. And if you are somebody who's interested in comedy and sketches or
Mm.
like a more serious performance, like I've seen a lot of actors doing a lot more serious performance on TikTok, more drama led, scenes from things,
Yeah.
and the engagement they get is quite high. And obviously there'll always be those videos where you get 4 people that see it, and there'll be videos where you get hundreds of people that see it, or
Yeah.
thousands, millions, it doesn't matter.
Mm.
But like I said, if you think of it as a tool to develop yourself and use it to stretch your acting muscles,
Mm.
then ultimately you're doing it for your own benefit and not the benefit of the audiences on the platform. And I
Yeah.
think there's something really magical in that.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. I should start creating more. That's my
Yeah.
tip now.
Yes.
So I'm just going to go on to my last question, which is really like, what advice would you give to any creative, really, in general? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my advice I would give to creatives more than anything is you are an actor, whether you work in a bar, you are an actor if you work at Tesco, you are an actor if you're working as a receptionist, you are an actor, you are an actor, you are an actor. And
Mm.
I think we need to remind ourselves that we are in an industry where we have to make friends with rejection. We have to appreciate that we're putting ourselves out there, and it's not always going to be a sustainable full-time option for many of us. And
Mm.
so I think sometimes a lot of us get into an imposter syndrome of saying to ourselves, I'm not consistently working, therefore what I'm doing is not successful.
Mm.
And like I said earlier in the podcast, I think you have to reframe what is your view of success? What does success look like for you? Does it look like getting one job a year? Does it look like going fully freelance and doing a variety of roles? Does it look like performing with Dame Judi Dench at the National? What does success look like for you, and work towards that? And I
Mm.
think my version of success for me is at a point where I am consistently being creative and making work I'm excited to make. And
Yeah.
whether as an actor, whether that is as a producer, whether I go in and support with administration on a project or go in run a workshop with young people, whatever the case may be, I'm contributing to something that is creative and fun and is making my life more joyful. And
Yeah.
so that's my version of success. So what's yours?
Yeah, no, that's really great. I think that's very valid. It's nice to be reminded that you are an actor. That's the first person that's actually said that on the podcast. Because I always ask this question about what's like the most, helpful advice to any creative. And a lot of it is like, yeah, just do it. Just make sure that you take all the chances that you can get and stuff. But no one ever says like, yeah, but you are an actor. And yeah, you are, definitely, 100%. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you coming and chatting.
You are so welcome, and thank you. It's been so lovely to have an opportunity to talk about acting and online stuff and all of those things. And hopefully, people will get something from this.
Oh,
That
100%. Yeah,
if,
definitely.
if you take nothing else away from the podcast, just remember if you get recognized in public, don't tell someone that you don't know where your mum is.
So yeah, when you're on the National Theatre with David Tennant and they come to the stage door, don't say, I've lost my mum.
Exactly. And let that be my legacy, Grace. Let it be my legacy.
And also don't talk about fannies on TikTok.
Yeah, because you
What
will
the hell?
be monetized. There you go. So all sketches make them fanny free. But aside from that, go for gold and just get yourself out there.